My little brother thinks our parents saved him, but the truth is they took him from my sister, raised him as their own, and now she's back demanding her son after 19 years. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 29, and for most of my life I believed my family's biggest miracle was my baby brother. That's how it was always framed. We lived in Worthington, Ohio. My dad, David Carter, was an elder at our church. My mom, Susan Carter, organized the women's ministries and charity drives. We were the stable family. The dependable one. At least from the outside. My sister Hannah is 5 years older than me. When she was 16, something shifted in our house. I didn't understand it at the time. I just remember doors closing more softly. My parents whispering instead of arguing. My mom crying in the laundry room when she thought no one could hear. Hannah stopped eating dinner with us. She wore baggy sweatshirts even in the summer. And then one afternoon, my parents called me into the living room like I was about to be grounded. Hannah's going to stay with Aunt Linda for a while, my mom said carefully. Aunt Linda lived in Mesa, Arizona. I had met her twice. She sold real estate and sent us Christmas cards with desert sunsets on them. Why? I asked. She just needs a fresh start, my dad replied. His tone wasn't angry. It was rehearsed. I remember running upstairs to Hannah's room after that. Suitcases were already open on her bed. Clothes folded in neat stacks like she was preparing for college, not exile. Are you coming back? I asked. She looked at me for a long second. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. It was like she had already cried everything out. Yeah, she said. Of course. But she hugged me like she didn't believe it. 2 days later, she was gone. No goodbye dinner. No explanation to friends. At church that Sunday, my mom told people Hannah was struggling emotionally and needed space to refocus. Everyone nodded sympathetically. No one asked questions. 9 months passed. And then my parents flew to Arizona to visit. They came home with a baby. I can still see it clearly. My dad stepping through the front door holding a car seat. My mom glowing in a way I had never seen before, like she'd personally negotiated with heaven. We have incredible news, she said. They told me they had felt called to adopt a newborn boy. It had all happened quickly. It was meant to be. A blessing. His name was Tyler. I was 10. I didn't question it. I just fell in love with him immediately. He was tiny and red-faced and loud, and when he wrapped his fingers around mine, I felt important. Hannah came back to Ohio a few months later. She looked different. Thinner. Quieter. Older somehow. When she saw Tyler for the first time in our living room, everyone held their breath. My mom handed him to her like it was a test. Hannah took him carefully. She didn't coo. She didn't smile. She just stared at his face for a long time. Then she handed him back. I'm tired, she muttered, and went upstairs. At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. Or jealous. Or distant in that teenage way older sisters can be. Now I replay that moment constantly. Because now I know she wasn't holding her baby brother. She was holding her son. Growing up, there were rules in our house that no one said out loud. We didn't talk about Arizona. We didn't ask why the adoption had been so sudden. We didn't question why no paperwork or birth stories were ever discussed in detail. Tyler was just Tyler. The miracle baby. The proof that God rewards faithful families. And my parents poured everything into him. They were in their late 40s when he was born. More patient than they'd ever been with Hannah. Softer than they'd been with me. They went to every preschool recital, every soccer practice. My dad built him a treehouse in the backyard when he was 7. Hannah barely came to any of it. She left for college at 18 and rarely came home except for major holidays. When she did, she kept conversations polite and short. She treated Tyler like a distant cousin instead of a sibling. No inside jokes. No teasing. Just careful space. I used to resent her for that. Tyler adored her. He followed her around when she visited, asking questions about college, about her life. She'd answer kindly but never let him get too close. When he was about 10, he once asked at dinner, "Why don't we have baby pictures of me in the hospital?" The room went still. My mom smiled quickly. "Because the adoption happened so fast, honey. We didn't get those early moments." He nodded and went back to eating. No one breathed until he changed the subject. As I got older, pieces started clicking together in ways I didn't want them to. The timing. The silence. The way my parents' eyes hardened anytime someone mentioned teen pregnancy in conversation. The way Hannah flinched at certain jokes. But I never asked directly. Part of me didn't want to know. Because by then Tyler wasn't a secret or a symbol. He was just my brother. The kid who borrowed my phone charger and forgot to give it back. The one who called me crying the first time he failed a math exam. The one who genuinely believed he'd been chosen. Our parents reinforced that narrative constantly. "You were meant for us," my mom would tell him. And he believed it with his whole heart. By the time Tyler turned 19, he was living at home in Worthington, going to community college for business and working part-time at an electronics store. He still hugged my parents goodnight. Still called them mom and dad with this easy affection that felt solid and real. Which is why, 2 months ago, when Hannah sat on my couch in my apartment in Dublin and said, "I want him back," it felt like someone had pulled the foundation out from under everything. She didn't mean she wanted to reconnect. She meant she wanted to tell him the truth. And maybe change everything. That was the moment I realized the story we'd all been living inside wasn't a miracle. It was a cover. And it was about to crack open. After Hannah said she wanted him back, I didn't respond right away. I just stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, or laugh, or say she didn't mean it like that. She didn't. She looked exhausted in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes, sleeves tugged down over her hands even though my apartment was warm. "You don't get to just take a person back," I finally said, my voice sounding thinner than I expected. She gave this small, humorless smile. "He's my son, Emma." Hearing the word out loud made my chest tighten. No one in our family had ever said it. Not once. Not even by accident. "You signed the adoption papers," I said quietly. Her face changed immediately. Not angry, wounded. "You think I had a choice?" And suddenly we were somewhere dangerous. Hannah had always been vague about that year. If it came up at all, she'd brush it off with, "It was a long time ago," or "I was young." But now she leaned forward, elbows on her knees, fingers knotted together like she was bracing herself. "They told me if I kept him, I couldn't come home," she said. "No money. No support. No college. Nothing." My throat went dry. "They said I'd ruin the family. That dad would lose his position at church. That you'd be bullied at school. That mom's health couldn't handle the stress." She laughed bitterly. They were very thorough. I tried to picture our parents saying those things and couldn't. Not because they were incapable of cruelty, but because they never framed anything as cruelty. Everything was always presented as concern, as guidance, as what was best. "What about the father?" I asked. She shook her head. 17-year-old boy who panicked and disappeared. His parents made sure of that. Of course they did. Hannah stared at her hands. By the time I was 8 months pregnant, they'd already decided. Mom had the paperwork ready before I even went into labor. A cold feeling spread through me. "You're saying they planned to adopt him from the start?" She didn't answer directly. She didn't have to. I thought about my mom glowing in the doorway with that car seat. About the rehearsed speech. About how fast everything had seemed to happen. My stomach twisted. "But they did raise him," I said, almost defensively. "They didn't just dump him somewhere. They loved him." "I know," Hannah said softly, which somehow made it worse. "That's what makes this so messed up. They didn't steal him to hurt him. They stole him because they wanted him." The word "stole" hung in the air between us. I didn't like it. It made everything sound criminal, ugly, irreversible. "They didn't steal him," I said weakly. "You signed." "I signed because I was 16 and terrified," she snapped, then immediately covered her face. "I'm sorry. I'm not mad at you." She took a shaky breath. "I've been in therapy for almost a year now," she continued. "My therapist keeps saying I never processed any of it. That I just froze and moved on. But you can't freeze forever. Eventually everything thaws." I didn't know what to say to that. Growing up, Hannah had been the rebel. The emotional one. The one who slammed doors and blasted music and talked back. After Arizona, she became eerily controlled. No outbursts, no drama, just distance. Now I realized that wasn't maturity. It was suppression. "I tried to build a life," she said quietly. "College, jobs, relationships. But nothing stuck. Every time things got stable, I'd panic. Like I didn't deserve it." That tracked. Hannah's resume was a patchwork of short-term positions and abrupt moves. My parents always described her as restless. I'd secretly thought she was just irresponsible. Guilt pricked at me. "So what changed?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. "I saw a little boy at the clinic where I work. He had the same cowlick Tyler has. Same crooked smile." Her voice wobbled. "And it hit me that my son was out there somewhere growing up without me." I swallowed. "He wasn't without family. He had us." "I know," she said again. "That's the problem. He didn't need me." The rawness in her voice made my chest ache. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of my refrigerator sounded absurdly loud in the silence. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "There's something else," she said. A warning bell went off in my head. She unlocked the screen and handed it to me. A text thread was open. At first, I didn't recognize the number. Then I saw the contact name. Tyler. My heart started pounding. "You text Tyler?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head. "Not at first. We met in person." Everything inside me went cold. "What do you mean, you met him?" "For coffee," she said. 6 months ago. Completely by accident." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "There's this place in Worthington, Maple Street Cafe. I go there sometimes before work when I'm in town." She swallowed. "He was there studying." I recognized him immediately. Of course she did. He had her eyes. Anyone with basic genetics knowledge could see it. "I almost left," she continued. "But he looked up and smiled at me like I was just another person. Not someone who gave him up. Not someone who abandoned him." Her voice cracked on the last word. So I sat down. I gripped the phone tighter. What did you tell him? That I knew his family. That I'd lost touch years ago and wanted to say hi. She winced. Technically true. I felt nauseous. And he just believed that? He's trusting, she said softly. You know that? Yes. I did. Tyler had grown up in a safe, predictable world. He assumed people meant what they said. That lies were rare exceptions, not foundations. He asked if I wanted to join him, she continued. We talked for almost 2 hours. School, work, dumb stuff. He told me about mom's cooking, dad's bad jokes, how he wants to transfer to Ohio State eventually. Her mouth trembled. He told me he feels pressure to make them proud because they waited so long for him. I closed my eyes. That's not fair, I whispered. You shouldn't have. I know, she said quickly. I know. But after that, he texted me. Said it was nice meeting me. Asked if I wanted to grab coffee again sometime. I opened my eyes. And you said yes. She nodded, shame flooding her face. I told myself it would be just once more. But of course it wasn't. He started confiding in me, she said. Stuff he doesn't tell mom and dad. Stress about school. Feeling like he has to be perfect. Not knowing what he actually wants to do with his life. Her fingers twisted together. He sends me memes, Emma. Dumb videos. He calls me when he's upset. Every word felt like a violation. Not because Hannah was malicious. She didn't sound malicious at all. She sounded desperate. He thinks I'm just some old family friend, she finished quietly. Someone safe to talk to. I set the phone down like it might burn me. He doesn't know, I said. No. He doesn't suspect anything? She shook her head. Why would he? Because the truth would never occur to him. Because his entire identity depended on it not being true. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. Hannah, I said slowly, this is dangerous. Her eyes met mine, bright with something fierce. I know. Mom and Dad would lose their minds if they found out. I know. You could destroy him. Her expression crumpled. I already did that once. Silence swallowed the room. Outside, a car drove past, bass thumping faintly through the windows, completely unaware that my entire family history was unraveling inside a second-floor apartment. What do you want from me? I finally asked. She looked at me like I was the last solid thing in a collapsing building. I'm going to tell him, she said. Soon. My heart slammed against my ribs. And I need you there when I do. The air felt suddenly too thin to breathe. Why me? Because he trusts you, she said. Because you're the only person who loves all of us. That wasn't comfort. It was a sentence. If I do this alone, she continued, voice shaking now, he might feel like he's losing everyone at once. But if you're there, maybe he won't feel completely abandoned. Abandoned. The word echoed in my head, heavy and ugly. I need time, I said. She nodded like she expected that, but the desperation in her eyes didn't fade. As she left my apartment that night, she paused in the doorway. I already lost him once, she said quietly. I can't lose him again without even trying. Then she walked out, leaving me standing in the hallway, staring at the door like it might open again and undo everything she'd just said. It didn't. And for the first time in my life, I realized the secret that had shaped our entire family wasn't buried. It was alive. And it was already moving. After Hannah left that night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, like if I ran it enough times I'd find a version where it wasn't real. Where Tyler wasn't texting his biological mother memes about college stress. Where my parents hadn't built their entire late-life happiness on something that might have started as coercion. At 3 a.m, I almost called my mom. I even had her contact open, my thumb hovering over the call button. But what was I supposed to say? Hey, just checking. Did you pressure your teenage daughter into giving up her baby so you could raise him yourselves? Instead, I threw my phone across the bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The worst part was that life didn't stop. The next weekend was my dad's birthday, which meant the whole family gathering at my parents' house in Worthington. Skipping it would have raised immediate suspicion, so I went. Walking into that house felt like stepping into a stage set where everyone else had the script except me. My mom hugged me at the door, smelling like vanilla and laundry detergent. Emma, you look tired. Are you working too hard again? If only. The house looked exactly the same as always, polished wood floors, framed family photos, the faint scent of pot roast drifting from the kitchen. Tyler was in the living room assembling some complicated-looking drone kit, tongue sticking out in concentration the way it had since he was little. He looked up and grinned. Hey, come see this. Just like that, my chest hurt. He had no idea his life was balanced on the edge of a cliff. I sat on the floor next to him while he excitedly explained how the camera stabilization worked. He talked fast, hands moving constantly, completely absorbed in the moment. God, he was such a good kid. Not perfect. Not saintly. Just decent. Thoughtful. The kind of person who returned shopping carts even when no one was watching. At one point he said, I met this really cool woman at Maple Street Cafe a while back. She's older, but like, not old. She gives amazing advice. My heart stopped. Oh, I said, praying my voice sounded normal. Yeah, she used to know you guys or something. Hannah especially, I think. He shrugged. She's kinda mysterious. Of course she was. What's her name? I asked carefully. Anna. Or Hannah. Something like that. He frowned. I'm bad with names. I forced a laugh that sounded fake even to my own ears. Clearly. He smiled, oblivious. She says I put too much pressure on myself. Which, yeah, probably true. My hands felt numb. So you talk to her a lot? I asked. Not all the time, he said quickly, almost defensive. Just when I'm stressed. It's easier talking to someone who doesn't expect anything from me. That sentence lodged in my chest like a shard of glass. Because of course he felt pressure. He was the miracle child. The late-in-life blessing. The one who had to justify everything my parents had poured into him. He leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Don't tell Mom, okay? She'd freak out about me meeting strangers. I nodded automatically. Congratulations, I thought bitterly. You're officially complicit. Dinner was worse. Hannah had said she wasn't coming, which should have made things easier. Instead, it felt like a ghost was sitting at the table with us. My dad carved the roast while talking about Tyler's grades. My mom asked about his work schedule, reminding him to save money and get enough sleep. It was the same conversation we'd had 100 times, comforting in its predictability. And suddenly I couldn't stop imagining how it would sound if the truth were spoken out loud. Not your son. Your grandson. Not adopted. Reassigned. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom just to breathe. When I came back, my mom was saying, you know, Tyler, you've always been such a gift to us. We waited so long for you. He smiled shyly. I got lucky. Lucky. The word made my throat tighten. After dinner, my dad settled into his recliner to watch a game while Tyler sprawled on the floor nearby, still tinkering with the drone. My mom fussed in the kitchen, packing leftovers into containers no one had asked for. Normal. Safe. Ordinary. Built on something fragile enough to shatter with a single sentence. As I was putting on my coat to leave, my mom touched my arm. Have you talked to Hannah lately? She asked casually. Too casually. My pulse jumped. A little. Why? She hesitated, eyes searching my face. She's been around more. Calling. Asking about Tyler. Warning bells screamed in my head. What did you tell her? I asked. The truth. That he's busy with school. She lowered her voice. I just hope she's not planning to stir up old issues. Old issues. Not trauma. Not a child. Issues. My dad joined us in the hallway, his expression tight. Your sister has a habit of creating chaos when things are finally peaceful. Something cold settled in my stomach. What do you mean? I asked carefully. He gave a dismissive shrug. You were too young to remember how difficult she was back then. I remembered enough. But I also remembered Hannah hugging me in the driveway like she was being sent somewhere she couldn't come back from. She's been through a lot, I said quietly. My mom's mouth pressed into a thin line. So have we. There it was, the unspoken divide. Their suffering versus hers. Their sacrifice versus her mistake. Just, if she says anything strange, my dad added, you tell us immediately. It wasn't a request. I nodded, because what else could I do? Driving back to my apartment, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Streetlights blurred into long streaks of yellow through the windshield. I was trapped between two versions of reality, both insisting they were the true one. Hannah's version, a terrified teenager pressured into surrendering her baby. My parents' version, a troubled daughter whose mistake they lovingly cleaned up by raising an innocent child. And Tyler, stuck in the middle, believing a third story entirely, that he was chosen, wanted, blessed. My phone buzzed at a red light. Hannah. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening the message. I saw him today. We had coffee again. My chest tightened. Another message popped up. He told me he's been feeling lost lately. Like he doesn't know who he's supposed to be. Then a third. I think I'm going to tell him soon. I can't keep lying to him. The light turned green behind me. Someone honked, snapping me out of it. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my hands were trembling so badly I had to sit in the car for a full minute before I trusted myself to move. Inside, the silence felt suffocating. I kept picturing Tyler's face at dinner. The easy trust in his voice when he talked about that nice woman from the cafe. The way he'd asked me not to tell Mom. He thought he was confiding in me. In reality, he was standing in the center of a web none of us had the courage to acknowledge. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. A new message from Hannah. I'm serious this time. I'm telling him. I hope you'll stand with me. I stared at the words until they blurred. Because suddenly, this wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't a someday problem. It was imminent. And no matter what happened next, someone was going to get hurt. Probably everyone. I set the phone face down on the table like that might stop it from existing. But the message was already there. The truth was already moving toward us. And for the first time, I realized that doing nothing wasn't neutral. It was a choice. One that might cost me my entire family. Hannah's message sat unanswered for 3 days. Not because I didn't care. Not because I didn't know what she was asking. But because every possible response felt like picking which part of my family to detonate. Yes meant betraying my parents. No meant betraying her. Silence meant betraying Tyler. By the fourth day, I started jumping every time my phone buzzed, convinced it would be another message saying it had already happened. That she'd told him. That everything was over. It didn't come. Instead, my mom called. "Emma, sweetheart, could you come by tonight?" she asked. Her voice sounded thin, strained. "Your father's not feeling well and Tyler's working late. I could use the company." Guilt won. It usually does. When I got to the house, the lights were on but the place felt off. Too quiet. My dad was in his recliner, TV on mute, staring at nothing. My mom hovered in the doorway like she didn't know where to put herself. "Is he okay?" I asked. "He's fine," she said quickly. "Just tired." My dad looked older than he had a week ago. Smaller somehow. "Your sister came by yesterday," he said without preamble. My stomach dropped. What did she want? His jaw tightened. To see Tyler. The room felt like it tilted. "And?" I asked carefully. "We told her it wasn't a good time." My mom's hands twisted together. She got upset. I could imagine. "What kind of upset?" I asked. My dad let out a humorless breath. The kind that suggests she's not done with us. There was fear in his voice. Real fear. Not fear of scandal or reputation, fear of losing something. "Hannah's been through therapy," I said cautiously. "She's trying to process things." My mom's eyes flashed. "Process what?" "We gave her a future. We gave that baby a stable home. We did what was best for everyone. Everyone. Except the 16-year-old girl who had to live with it." I didn't say that out loud. "She said some disturbing things," my dad continued. "Accusations. Claims that we forced her." The word forced hung in the air like a crack in glass. "Did you?" I asked before I could stop myself. Both of them stared at me. My mom's face crumpled first. "Emma, how could you even think that?" My dad didn't look hurt. He looked tired. "She was a child," he said slowly. "She didn't understand the consequences of what she'd done. We stepped in to protect her. And you. Protect. That word again. Always framed as protection. She had options," my mom added quickly. "But none of them were good. This was the least harmful path." "Least harmful for who?" I swallowed the question. "And Tyler?" I asked. "Does he know she came by?" "No," my dad said firmly. "He doesn't need to be dragged into old family drama." Old family drama. Like it wasn't his entire origin story. Before I could respond, headlights swept across the front windows. A car door slammed outside. "Tyler." My pulse spiked. He walked in a moment later, keys in one hand, backpack slung over his shoulder. "Hey, Em. Didn't know you were here." His smile faded as he looked around the room. "Everything okay?" No one answered right away. Then he frowned. "Did something happen?" My mom forced a smile. "Of course not, honey. Just a quiet evening." He didn't look convinced. "By the way," he said, dropping his backpack, "Hannah texted me today." Every nerve in my body lit up. "What did she say?" my dad asked too quickly. Tyler hesitated, glancing between us. "Just asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. Said she missed me." The air in the room thickened. "And?" my mom said, voice tight. I said maybe, he replied slowly. "Is that weird?" No one spoke. Tyler's eyes moved from face to face, confusion deepening. "Okay, seriously, what's going on?" I couldn't breathe. This was it. The moment where everything could tilt one way or another, depending on who spoke first. My dad stood abruptly. "You don't need to meet with her right now. She's going through some things." Tyler blinked. "She's my sister." My mom stepped forward, hands out like she was approaching a frightened animal. "Sweetheart, sometimes people say things when they're hurting. Things that aren't helpful. Not helpful." Like truth was a dangerous object that needed to be contained. Tyler's confusion shifted into something sharper. "You guys are acting like she's dangerous." "She's unstable," my dad said bluntly. That word hit like a slap. Tyler's shoulders stiffened. "She's still family." Silence again. Heavy. Pressurized. I realized I was gripping the arm of the couch so hard my fingers hurt. He turned to me, eyes searching. "Emma, do you know what this is about?" In that moment, every version of the future lined up in my head like dominoes. Tell him now, everything explodes instantly. Say nothing, he walks into Hannah's reveal blind. Warn our parents, Hannah loses her chance forever. My mouth went dry. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. "I think everyone's just stressed." Coward. Tyler studied me for a long moment, like he was trying to read something under the surface. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Okay, if you say so." But I could tell he didn't believe it. Later, after he went upstairs, my parents looked at me with identical expressions of relief. Like I had just helped hold a door closed against a storm. My dad squeezed my shoulder. "Thank you." I didn't feel thanked. I felt sick. I left soon after, the tension in the house clinging to me like smoke. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. "Hannah." My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I pulled into a gas station parking lot to read it. He agreed to meet me tomorrow. Maple Street Cafe. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs. Another message followed. "I'm going to tell him everything. I can't do this anymore." I stared at the screen, breath shallow. This was the point of no return. Once the words were spoken, nothing could be put back. Then the final message came through. I hope you'll be there. But even if you're not, I'm doing this. A car pulled up to the pump beside me, music blaring, someone laughing loudly, completely unaware that my entire world was tilting off its axis. I thought about Tyler sitting across from her tomorrow, probably expecting another comforting conversation with that nice woman who didn't judge him. I thought about my parents at home, believing they had contained the situation. I thought about Hannah, alone in that tiny duplex, carrying 19 years of grief and rage and hope into a single conversation. No matter what happened, someone was going to lose something they could never get back. Maybe all of us. My phone was still in my hand. All I had to do was type something. Warn my parents. Tell Hannah not to do it. Call Tyler. Show up. Stay away. Every option felt wrong. The sky had gone fully dark without me noticing. The glow from the gas station lights made everything look flat and unreal, like I was standing inside someone else's life. I opened a new message. My thumbs hovered over the screen. And I still didn't know who I was supposed to protect. Because the truth might set someone free. But it was also about to destroy the only family any of us had ever known. And for the first time in my life, I realized there might not be a right choice at all.